Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca Keppel and I'm here for Therm O Web, and I want to show you 5 different ways to color foiled and dimensional backgrounds. So we're going to use Therm O Web's brand new stencils. We're going to use their transfer gel, of course their purple tape to hold everything down, but then we're going to find after they dry 5 different ways to create additional color on those dimensional foiled backgrounds. So the first thing I'm going to do is take some watercolor paper. I'm going to use watercolor paper because some of the techniques that I'm going to use to color the different backgrounds are going to be wet or mixed media type of different backgrounds. So it's always good to use a thicker watercolor paper that really can withstand that. So I have one of the brand new stencils. I'm going to tape the watercolor to the back there. Then I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to tape it down to my protective surface. I'm going to grab the Therm O Web Deco Foil Transfer Gel and smear it all around with a palette knife, trying to make a basically even surface there. And then I'm going to peel up that tape. It's super easy to remove. And you can see that the transfer gel is raised and it's white right now. Once it's clear, that means it's dry and it's ready to foil. So I'm going to place a piece of Deco Foil on top. This is the new denim color. And I'm going to trim it to be the size of that card panel, place it in between some parchment paper from Therm O Web, and usually I put a piece of cardstock on the back, but because the watercolor cardstock is nice and thick, it was fine without it. And you can see that you get that beautiful foiled look. And these are the different colored backgrounds that we're going to do over that foiled dimensional look. So I'm just giving you a little glance at what we're going to create, and then we'll go through each of these different techniques. The first one is to use dye ink blending over that foiling. So I have the Gina designs for Therm O Web. I have a few of her inks, and I have a Ranger ink blending tool. I'm just going to pounce the tool onto the ink pad and just blend out some color. I'm going to do a couple of different colors on this one card panel, and then they will blend together in the spots where they overlap, which is always really fun. So I have the red here that I'm going to do right next to that passionate pink, and in between that you'll get some nice blending between those two colors. And then I also have the, let's see, I think I use next the wild lilac, and so I'm gonna blend that, and it actually does fine with the red as well. They blend really nicely together. The pink and the lilac blend really beautifully together. So I'm not putting it on super heavy, just enough that I can get lots of color. You'll see that that raised foil dimension is going to resist the ink. If you feel like some of the ink is on top, you can always wipe it away with a cloth or a dry paper towel. I'm just going to go back in and add a little bit more color because I wanted that pink to really shine. So, and I wanted to make sure that I was getting blending in between the two colors and making sure there was no white spots left. So once that's done, I'm just going to let that dry. And I can then easily remove, again, that purple tape comes off really easily. You can see that I die cut that panel into 3 different hearts and place them together to create my card. So the next technique is metallic pigment ink smearing. Again, I'm going to use my purple tape, and you can see I'm just taping it down to a piece of copy paper just to protect my work surface there. So I have this Delicata metallic ink in silver, and I'm just going to take the ink cube and just rub it along the card panel there. Again, the gold, it's actually the shattered glass in gold foiling that's on top of the transfer gel is going to resist this ink as well. So I'm just going to continue smearing on that metallic ink, covering up all the white from the watercolor cardstock, and then that beautiful gold dimensional foil will resist. I'm going to take a heat tool to this because it is a pigment ink and it will take a long time to dry otherwise. So you can see I just cut this down a little bit so it fit with a border on the top and the bottom on a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch note card. The metallic ink and the gold look beautiful together. So the third technique is to use distress crayon coloring. So this is kind of a long, thin panel here, and I am going to take some distress crayons and just rub them on top. So I have a red, a pink, and an orange, and a yellow. I'm doing those colors in kind of a Roy G. Biv format, and I'm not being careful. I am literally just laying down this color because we are going to add some water, and these distress crayons are reactive to water. The nice thing about the dimensional foil with the transfer gel is that it will resist the water as well, so no problem there. You can absolutely spray this card panel, get it wet, and then do what I'm doing here, which is just taking a dry paper towel and rubbing it to blend the colors together and to get a slightly smoother appearance. I always like with the distress crayons to leave a little bit of the coloring effect, so I don't blend them completely that you can't see those swipes of color, because I really, in some cases, like the way that looks. So I've missed a few spots here and there where it was hard to get the distress crayon to kind of sit into the edges. So I'm just adding a little bit more color and then blending with a little bit more water and then a clean spot on my paper towel. Just want to make sure that you do get a clean spot on the paper towel so that you don't get some of the other colors where you don't want them. And you can see here I just cut a strip of this, so I have plenty left for other cards, and added it to some Gina K cardstock for Therm O Web as well, with some stamping and gems. The fourth technique is to use alcohol marker coloring. So I have Copic markers, but Spectrum Noir or any other markers that you can blend will work with this. And I'm just in these corners here, this is kind of like a pinwheel looking stencil, and it reminded me in the spots where they connect of some type of pinwheel looking flower. So I grabbed 3 different colors of markers. I think I have G09, G14, and G17. So I'm going through with the lightest to the darkest, and then blending them out with that lightest and medium color again. And you can see that this is a really quick and easy. I'm just doing brush strokes to make it look like flowers on those backgrounds there. The next thing we're going to do is grab a white gel pen and add some details towards the centers of my flowers. Just little spots and little lines just to add some details. It makes it, I think, look a little bit more like a flower. So I used this as a background for a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch card. I also grabbed some Gina K designs for Therm O Web stamp and foil in the Where Flowers Bloom collection and added those as well. So this fifth and final technique is to use watercolor over the dimensional foiled background that we created. I am going to adhere this down to a board using some of the Therm O Web purple tape. This is really nice tape. It's works really great with watercolor, with die cutting, whatever you need. And I have a piece of acrylic. It's just some packaging. And I'm going to use some watercolor markers. These are the Arteza markers. And I'm just going to lay down some blues in just sloppy coloring. And I'm just going to have them mix in some lighter with darker colors. And I might even add a little bit of green in there as well. I really like this blue denim foil that we have now, and so I really wanted to complement that with blues and greens. I'm going to spray that acrylic piece and then flip it over onto my watercolor panel, and that's going to give me that fun start to a watercolor background. And I wanted a lot more water here, so I just spritzed some right on the card panel and then came in with some of the green to accent and pull out some different colors there. So I'm using the marker right on the card panel as well. Then I'm just gonna soak up some of the excess real big droplets with a dry paper towel, and I'm gonna respritz my acrylic and flip it over again. You can do this as many times as you want until you get the colors and effect that you're looking for. You can see that I wipe down the tape before I peel it off just because there was some kind of splattered on the side there, and I didn't want to smear it onto places that I didn't want that color. Once again, I'm going to take that green marker. I really liked the way it was complementing the the blue, and so I wanted to add lots of extra green in there. So I'm just gonna once again color it right on top. Once my watercolor was done, I decided to die cut this into a nice large circle. So I'm just gonna run it through with a large circle die. And then I have some blue cardstock that I am going to cut down to about 4 by 5 1/4 and lay that over some Gina for Therm O Web white cardstock that is a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch top folding note card. I'm going to slice the little side off of the die cut circle that we have there so I can lay it to the right hand side of my card. Now I'm going to take a piece of the sheer ribbon, Gina for Therm O Web sheer white ribbon, and I'm using some tape runner to run a line of adhesive down on the cardstock. This way it will stay exactly where I want it. So I'm going to flip it over, and then I'm going to put some tape runner on the back of the die cut circle there. So I decided to have it flush to the left instead of flush to the right so that I could have the ribbon on the right hand side. So I'm just going to put tape runner all over the back of that circle and then lay it down so that the edge lines up with the side of the cardstock. Next, I am going to flip over this panel and I'm just going to put Memory Runner XL, which is my favorite tape runner, all over, and then I'd lay it down to the card base there. And you can see that I had tied a bow, and once I looked at it, I didn't really love it. I didn't love the way the bow was sideways like that. So I undo the bow and then just cut some tails. So it's just one of those things. Sometimes you just have to roll with it. And even though at first it seems like it's a good idea, it just doesn't work for the look of the card or the background or whatever. And that's fine. Just change it up. Okay, so now I'm going to stamp my sentiment. It's going to curl right around the arc of the circle there. Just says happy birthday. The last thing I'm going to do is some embellishing. I added some Tonic Studios Nouveau Crystal drops, and now I wanted to add a few flat sequins. So I have the iCraft Mixed Media Adhesive. I've put it in another bottle that has a really fine tip. The tip that comes with the iCraft Mixed Media Adhesive is great, works perfectly even for small embellishments, but sometimes I like to use really tiny ones, and I wanted this fine tip for that. So that completes this 5th card, which is watercoloring over foiled dimensional backgrounds created with the Therm O Web stencils and the iCraft Deco Foil Transfer Gel. I hope you'll try out some of these techniques, and if you're interested in the products I used, as soon as they are available, they will all be linked down below. Thank you so much for stopping by today. Have a wonderful day.